Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name's Gretchen and today I am here to talk about my anticipated releases for October 2024. Now this is kind of a weird month for new releases for me. It seems like we have a lot of fantasy releases, there's a lot of mystery thrillers coming out, and there's also a lot of kind of holiday themed books and romances that are either for Halloween or for Christmas, and there really doesn't seem to be a whole lot of literary fiction, and that tends to be what I gravitate toward. But even though there aren't a whole lot of releases, there are definitely some heavy hitters in here that I want to highlight. And also another thing about October is because October starts on a Tuesday, that is a publication day in the States, so we actually end up with 5 weeks of releases in this month. So getting right into what my anticipated releases are, starting with October 1st. The first book I want to talk about is a collection of essays, and it's by Ta-Nahisi Coates, and it is called The Message. Now, for those of you that are familiar with the author, Ta-Nahisi Coates is also the author of Between the World and Me, and that was a book that came out a few years ago, and it was basically a letter to his child. I believe it was a letter to his son, and he was just writing this letter to talk to his son and prepare him for what the world would be like for him being a black man. And it was a very fascinating read. It was beautifully written, and I really enjoyed my time spent with that book. So when I saw that he had a new essay collection coming out, I was very excited. Now this one sounds interesting because it is a collection of 3 essays. The first essay is one about him taking a trip to Senegal. The other is about the nationalist agendas in Palestine. And then the third essay is about him traveling to South Carolina after one of his books had been banned. And I think that the way that the description is talking about these essay collections, at the very end, he somehow weaves them all together. And that just sounds really interesting to me, and I love his writing style. He always manages to bring out all of the emotions when I read his works, and I am sure that this one is going to do the same. Now, probably my most anticipated release for this upcoming month when it comes to literary fiction is The Mighty Red by Louise Erdrich, and I am always happy to see when we have a new Erdrich novel to look forward to. And this book takes place in a small farming community in North Dakota, and it follows a love triangle between 3 high school seniors. So we have a couple, Gary and Kismet. While they're applying for college, they fall in love and they decide to get married. But then we have Gus, who is also in love with Kismet, and he is willing to do whatever it takes to win Kismet's affection. And then we have another subplot in this book following Kismet's mom, and it is involving not only her, but her husband's disappearance after he apparently steals money from the church. Now, I'm not usually too keen on young love stories, but if there's any author out there that is going to get me interested in a subject like that, it's going to be Louise Erdrich. I absolutely adore her writing style as well, and I think that this sounds like it has the potential to be a really interesting read. Moving on to the week of October 8th, we have a new release coming out from Chuck Palahniuk, and this is called Shock Induction. Now, Chuck Palahniuk is the author of Fight Club and probably needs no introduction. So when I saw that he had a new book coming out, it sounded like it would be something I would be interested in. Now, the blurb says that this is a dark satirical parable novel about a string of mysterious disappearances, the seedy underbellies of billionaires, and the tough choices we make in the face of an uncertain future. Now, I really like the sound of that. I think it sounds like it's going to be gripping and probably a really fast-paced read. And I know from having read Fight Club that Palahniuk is very skilled at writing books where nothing is necessarily as it seems. So that is intriguing to me as well. And I think this is going to be a really fun, fast-paced read. The next book being released October 8th is a book called Love Can't Feed You, and this is by Cherry Liu Tsai, and this is being published by Haddon. Now, this is an author that I have never heard of, but when I read the description, I immediately put this on my list because it sounds fantastic. And this one says, after a harrowing flight, Queenie, her younger brother, and their elderly Chinese father arrive in the United States from the Philippines. They're here to finally reunite with Queenie's Filipina mother, who has been working as a nurse in Brooklyn for the past few years, building a life that everyone hopes will set them up for better prospects. But her mother is not the same woman she was in the Philippines. Something in her face is different, almost hardened, and she seems so American already. Queenie, on the cusp of adulthood, has big dreams of attending college, of spending her days immersed in the pages of books, but there is not enough money for her and her brother to both be in school, so first she must work. Queenie rotates through jobs and settles tentatively into her new life, but her brother begins to withdraw and act out, and her father's anger swells. As the pressures of assimilation compound and the fissures within her family deepen into fractures, Queenie is left suspended between two countries, two identities, and two parents. This sounds really great to me. I love a good family drama and learning about the immigrant experience, especially from the perspective of a teenager, as if being that age isn't challenging enough, the added complication of being in a new country will hopefully make for a really good, compelling read. The last book being released the week of October 8th is by Hollinghurst, and it is a book called Our Evenings. Now, this book immediately grabbed my attention because Hollinghurst is a previous winner of the Booker Prize. He won it for, I think, The Line of Beauty. I can't remember the exact year, but I do know that he has a history with the Booker. Now, this book says, Dave Wynn, the son of a Burmese man he's never met and a British dressmaker, is 13 years old when he gets a scholarship to a top boarding school. With the doors of an elite English society cracked open for him, heady new possibilities emerge, even as Dave is exposed to the envy and viciousness of his wealthy classmates. Hollinghurst's new novel follows Dave from the 60s on through the possibilities that remained open for him and others that proved to be illusory. As a working-class brown child in a decidedly white institution, a young man discovering queer culture and experiencing his first formative love affairs, a talented but often overlooked actor on the road with an experimental theater company, and an older Londoner whose late-in-life marriage fills his days with an unexpected sense of happiness and security. I think that sounds really interesting, and I think it will be a story that has many different layers to it. I have never read anything by Hollinghurst, but I have heard that his writing is really lush and lyrical, and I am looking forward to digging into not only this book, but also some of his backlist that has been associated with the Booker Prize. Moving on to the week of October 15th, we have a short story collection from Mark Haddon Haddon, and it is called Dogs and Monsters. And for those of you that aren't familiar with Mark Haddon, he was the author of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. I think that that's the name. I always get the name of that one wrong. I hope that that's right. But this is a short story collection, and I really like a short story collection. I know that not everybody likes them, but I love the idea of being able to pick up a book, reading a story, putting the book down, and it not mattering how much time has passed between the time you put the book down and you pick it up again, because it's a new story that's gonna start. And I really appreciate that format of book, especially for a reader like me that usually has a lot of books going. Now, this one, I was interested because it's a short story collection first and foremost, but then I read what the theme was and it really caught my attention. And this says that it includes 8 short stories that use Greek myths and contemporary dystopian narratives to examine mortality, moral choices, and the many variants of love. And that just sounds really good to me. I love Greek mythology, so this definitely sounds like it's going to be right up my alley. The next book being released the week of October 15th is called Sonny Boy, and it's by Al Pacino. And this is Al Pacino's memoir. I mean, say no more. I would be absolutely delighted to read more about his life. Moving on to the week of October 22nd, we have another memoir, and this is called Patriot by Alexei Navalny. Now, this is a memoir that Navalny started shortly after he was nearly poisoned in 2020, and he continued to write this memoir as pieces of correspondence while he was in a Russian prison. And the book description says that this book is a reminder of why the principles of individual freedom matter so deeply, and it is a rousing call to continue the work for which he sacrificed his life. I'm sure that this is going to be a really tough read, but I'm really looking forward to learning more about him. I know that this is going to be a book that a lot of people are talking about, especially because of his tragic death not too long ago. And yeah, I am definitely wanting to prioritize this memoir. The next book that I want to talk about is called The Wood at Midwinter, and this is by Susanna Clarke, and I am really excited about this one. Now, this is hopefully going to fill that Piranesi shaped void that all of us have had for a long time. Unfortunately, this is not a full-length novel. It's just a little novella. I think it comes in at 64 pages, but I am happy to get any new material from Clarke, and this will just have to do until we get another full-length novel. And this one also sounds really fun and magical. Now, this says 19-year-old Meredith Scott is an unusual girl. She can talk to animals and trees, and she is only ever happy when she is walking in the woods. One snowy afternoon, out with her dogs and Apple the pig, Meredith encounters a blackbird and a fox. As darkness falls, a strange figure enters in their midst, and the path of her life is changed forever. Now, like I said, this just sounds cozy and magical, and it's supposedly illustrated, which I love. I don't see a whole lot of books being illustrated, and I can only imagine, based on the description of what this book's about, that the illustrations are going to be beautiful as well. So I'm really excited to get my hands on this one. Now, rounding out the month being released the week of October 29th, we have 2 pieces of literary fiction. Now, the first one is called This Motherless Land by Nikki May. And for those of you that are thinking that name sounds familiar, Nikki May was the author of a book called Walhalla that came out a few years ago. I haven't read that one, but I've heard really good things. This specific book immediately caught my attention because it's a retelling of of Mansfield Park, which is really fun. Now, the description for this book says, Quiet Funke is happy in Nigeria. She loves her art teacher mother, her professor father, and even her annoying little brother most of the time. But when tragedy strikes, she's sent to England, a place she knows only from her mother's stories. To her dismay, she finds the much lauded estate dilapidated, the food tasteless, the weather gray. Worse still, her mother's family are cold and distant, with one exception, her cousin Liv. Free-spirited Liv has always wanted to break free of her joyless family. She becomes fiercely protective of her little cousin, and her warmth and kindness gives Funke a place to heal. The two girls grow into adulthood the closest of friends. But the choices their mothers made haunt Funke and Liv, and when a second tragedy occurs, their friendship is torn apart. Against the long shadow of their shared family history, each woman will struggle to chart a path forward, separated by country, misunderstanding, and ambition. Moving between Somerset and Lagos over the course of 2 decades, this motherless land is a sweeping examination of identity, culture, race, and love that asks how we find belonging and whether a family's generational wrongs can be righted. That just sounds great to me. I love the idea of taking an English classic and putting a spin on it with Nigerian characters to breathe new life into the story. I love the fact that this is going to be a family saga. I love good drama when it comes to families. I also love the idea of, although they're not sisters, that female bond and that female friendship. So this sounds like it really has a lot going on for it, and I'm really looking forward to it. And last but not least, the final book that I want to talk about is called Like Mother by Susan Rieger. Now, this was not a book that was on my radar at all. I've never heard of the author, and I was really drawn into the cover, but then when I read the description, I immediately knew that this was a book that I had to put on my list. Now, it definitely caught my attention because it says this novel is about 3 strong-willed women unknowingly shaped by secrets buried in their family's past, and the description goes on to say, Detroit, 1960, Lila is 2 years old when her angry, abusive father has her mother committed to an asylum. Lila never sees her mother again. 3 decades later, having mustered everything she has, brains, charm, talent, blonde hair, Lila rises to the pinnacle of American media as a powerful, brilliant executive editor of the Washington Globe. Lila unapologetically prioritizes her career, leaving the rearing of her daughters to her generous husband, Joe. He doesn't mind until he does. But Grace, their youngest daughter, feels abandoned. She wishes her mother would attend PTA meetings, not White House correspondence dinners. As she grows up, she cannot shake her resentment. She wants out from under Lila's shadow, yet the more she resists, the more Lila seems to shape her life. Grace becomes a successful reporter, even publishing a best-selling book about her mother. In the process of writing it, she realizes how little she knows about her own family. Did Lila's mother, Grace's grandmother, die in the asylum? Is refusal to look back the only way to create a future? How can you ever be yourself, Grace wonders, if you don't know where you came from? Spanning generations and populated by complex, unforgettable characters, Like Mother is an exhilarating portrait of family, marriage, ambition, power, the stories we inherit, and the lies we tell to become the people we believe we're meant to be. Yeah, this sounds like there's a lot going on and like it's gonna be a really gripping read. I love that idea of having characters try so hard to not become a certain thing and then falling right into that trap. And I also love that mother-daughter dynamic in books, and this sounds like it's going to have a lot of different layers to it. It sounds like it's going to be messy and emotional, and I think that it sounds like it's going to be a fast-paced, riveting read, and I'm very much looking forward to that one as well. And that's it. Those are all of the books that I'm looking forward to being released in October. Although there weren't as many as I usually have in these types of videos, I think the ones that I was able to find are going to be high quality reads and very much worth my time. I am also really excited that we're finally into fall. Although it's still a little warm where I am, we still haven't quite got into that cold, crisp, chill in the air type of weather, but this is my favorite time of year to pick up books, and I love that we have a lot of new books to look forward to. So wherever you are, I hope that you are reading a great book, and until we read again, bye!